Hello and welcome to this lecture, and in this lecture we are going to learn a few more things about functions. So in the previous lecture we have created a function in which we had this code which actually made completely no sense because I just wanted to explain you guys the idea of function, what is a function definition, what is a function call, and how a function can be used to implement the code reuse. So now in this lecture we are going to learn something which is called as function arguments. So if you recall from the previous lecture, I already mentioned that these two brackets are actually there in the function so that we could pass parameters to the function. So let's go ahead and learn about functional arguments. So if you still have doubt like what a function is actually something which has a bunch of code which is going to get executed, and imagine function as kind of a black box in which you enter some values, that is you pass some values to the function or the black box actually processes those values and gives you out a certain set of result. So in this lecture we are going to create a simple function to add two numbers. So the very first thing to do while defining a function is we type def, as this is a function definition, and let's name this function as add, as this function is going to add two numbers. Then let's have our usual brackets and a colon, and as in this tutorial we are going to talk about functional arguments, we are going to pass two arguments to this function right here. Now arguments are nothing but it is some kind of data which we want to pass to the function so that the function could actually take that data and process the data further. So now in this case, as we want to add two numbers, we want to pass in two arguments to this. So we pass two numbers in the form of variable. So we type a as the first argument, which is the first number, give a comma to specify the second argument, and let's type in the second argument as p. So what this essentially means is that we want to pass two variables to the function add, which is the number a and the number b. Now if you hit enter and go back to the next line, you could start writing the code in your function. Now what you want to do in your function is that you simply want to print out the addition of two numbers. So what you do here is you simply type in print, and now once you have these two numbers a and b, you could simply type in a plus p. So this essentially is the function which we have defined, which is going to add up the two numbers a and b, and it is going to print out the addition of two numbers. Now once we have defined the function definition, let's go down somewhere here and let's actually call the function. So you know what we need to do to call a function. So you simply need to specify the function name and have brackets right after the function name. But the thing is that this thing, which is the add function, is not a usual normal function. Instead it is a function which is going to ask you for arguments. So we have passed in arguments like a comma b. Now in this add function we need to pass in the actual values which will be a and b respectively. So here we need to pass in the two numbers which we want to add. So let's type in 10 comma 20. So let me explain you the flow of the program and how the program is actually going to get executed. So what happens in this case is that this is the function call to the add function, and we have passed in two parameters, that is 10 and 20, to this function right here. So what this is going to do is that it is going to call this function and it is going to pass these values 10 and 20 to a and b respectively. So now in this case a becomes equal to 10 and b becomes equal to 20. So what this thing essentially does is that it prints out the result as 10 plus 20, which comes out to be 30. So now if you save the code and if you execute it, as you could see, we get the result as 30, and that is because we have called this function, which is the add function, which basically prints out the result of addition, and as we have passed in the values as 10 and 20, we get the result as 10 plus 20. Now what you could do with functions is that you could have multiple calls with different values as well. So that is one advantage of passing parameters to a function. So let's say you have performed this addition operation and let's say you want to perform one more. So what you could do is that you could go right ahead, again call the add function, but this time instead of passing in 10 and 20, let's say you want to pass in some different set of values. So let's say this is going to be 100 comma 200. So now this time After executing this function, it is again going to execute the function add, but with a different set of values, that is nothing but 100 and 200. So if you simply save the code and if you run it, as you could see, this time you get the result as 300, and that is because in the second function call we have passed the values as 100 and 200. So that is all about the function arguments. So arguments are nothing but some values which you pass to the function, and that particular function processes those values depending upon the code which we write inside here. So let's say instead of a plus b, you had something like a multiplied by b. So in this case, instead of adding these two values, it is actually going to perform multiplication operation on those two values. So if you run this code now, as you could see, now you got the result for multiplication of two numbers. So that's it for this lecture, and I hope you guys understood what are function arguments. So function arguments are nothing but the values which we pass into a particular function. So we will be using these functions and functional arguments in the upcoming lectures as well. So make sure that your concepts related to function and functional arguments are clear. And if you don't understand any part of any tutorial, then make sure to post your questions in the discussion section or the Q&A section, and I will be there for you to help you out. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.